Good evening, Jamie Finn here from On the Ball Team Building. We are on episode 4 of An Inside View. Tonight we have Eamonn Hickson on, who's going to be discussing his 7 world records. And I'm going to bring him in there now. Eamon, how are things? How are you?
Hey Jimmy, what's happening?
Not much, not much. How are you keeping?
Not so bad, not so bad. Good to be
Good.
chatting to you.
Good, good, good. How are you staying active these days during lockdown?
Uh, Not very easy. It's just chatting to a few colleagues there the last few days. We were saying, wow, what a month of April it would have been for club championship. You know, the best weather we've had in 8 or 9 months. It would just been absolutely fantastic if playing junior championship in that. But instead, it's the 5th of May or 6th of May, and we haven't kicked the ball in 6 or 7 weeks. So it's a bit of a sickener, you know, not what you plan. Sure, as you know, there with Owners Call, we were all out to win. We're out to win a championship every year. It doesn't happen, but we were really out to win, or go a step further at least in the junior. It didn't work out. So instead of training the past couple of weeks, everything's been on my own, which I know everyone has to do it, but it's kind of hard when you plan that. Oh, look, it was football flat out. I'm going to kind of ease off the harder training more into playing games and playing games week on and trying to recover during the week to get going again. It's kind of disappointing to be sitting here in May and not having kicked the ball in 5 or 6 weeks. But like you kind of make up all things to keep you entertained and keep you activated and keep you motivated. And I can tell you about those later on. But yeah, it's tough enough. Yeah, it's tough enough when you're planning for a team game and that doesn't happen.
Yeah, yeah. I was just that's kind of interesting what you said. I suppose you're in a quite particular, unique situation that you're kind of used to training on your own at this stage, are you? And keeping the mind focused on tasks at hand, rather than, I suppose, a lot of county players and then even a lot of club players now are, training on their own is something new. What do you do to keep yourself focused? Is it goal setting, or it's very easy to write down goals and divert from them?
Yeah, yeah. I think you have to have a target. So over the past few months, over the winter, it was kind of simple. I went back. I don't do a lot of gym work in a gym, but the past few months over the winter, I said, right, I kind of lost a little bit too much weight. Mobility was a big thing, but I said first and foremost, I need to get a little bit stronger because I've lost a little bit of strength, lost a bit of weight. So I said, if I can get back into an actual gym and do the traditional things, as we call them, like benching and deadlifts and squats, just to put on a bit of weight and a bit of strength, and then stay mobile. And when we get back in playing football, we're on the school in January, February, March, like be fit and be able and not have silly little injuries like little hamstring pulls and all that kind of stuff. But that obviously my training was starting to change. Then the gyms closed, football stopped. So from then on, it's just in the shed at home. It's all body weight stuff, and you have to have some target. The target was to be playing football. That didn't happen. So something I did last month, Jason, my brother, and I, and a good few actually of my family, a few of my sisters, and a few friends of theirs in Cork. It was something simple, just during the month of April, 10,000 body weight exercises across two exercises. Because there were days you're like, yeah, a long day of work and I don't want to come home and start doing some exercises. But then you see with a group of maybe about 25 people, and next thing someone would say, Laura might say, oh, I've my couple of hundred done for today. And it was something so basic. You're like, heck this, I got to get out and do my whatever it was. I was doing push-ups and
Yeah,
pulls, or like chin-ups and pull-ups. So like there were days you're like, this is kind of depressing. But you had a bit of a goal. It was to make 10,000, which like I'd never done 10,000 of any exercise in a month. And there were drawbacks to that, but it was kind of like something so simple. Everyone else was doing, some were doing squats, others were doing lunges, others were doing even assisted push-ups, on your knees. Something so basic, and it was a lovely goal. Just at the 30th of April, I was out in the shed at 11 o'clock at night. Something so basic, and hit my 10,000, and it's like, oh, that was nice. So it was just something so silly, but it was a goal for the month of April, and got some bad news today from a GA perspective that we're not allowed back on the pitches till July 20th at least.
Yeah.
We were hoping we'd be allowed back a bit earlier, but I kind of a plan or two just to keep things going, and I'll be saying to a few friends, saying, look, do you want to train for such and such, because you have to have a target, and it can be anything. It could just be to lose a kg or gain a kg of weight, or be able to do a number of push-ups or pull-ups or whatever. You have to have a goal, because otherwise you're just kind of drifting around aimlessly,
Yeah, I suppose on that point again, I suppose again, without even realizing it, I suppose you kind of created your own team of, say,
Yeah.
15 or 20 people, and again that you're all driving yourself on, albeit it's over WhatsApp. But again, I suppose just for people listening, it's look, if you can't meet up, whatever, definitely get a group of like-minded people that look, at least you will push each other, and if someone isn't feeling like it, look, the other person can definitely step up to it. Just on that point, we say with the GA, do you think that this long break will have a positive or a negative effect on players coming back on both club and county scene?
Uh, that's a good one. And if there was ever a thing that comes down to the individual, I think this is it. Because,
Yeah.
maybe over the past few years, or like, especially when I started playing senior football, so 15, 16 years ago, like, people could take a few months off over the winter. It was nearly the thing to do. You'd have maybe 2 months off, and there'd be no training, there'd be no strength and conditioning, there'd be nothing. And it was always a joke when you came back in what used to be start of February then, like, you'd have an extra bit of weight, especially the older lads. And, but that doesn't happen now. So, lads, almost everyone is doing something, and you're saying it's going to have a positive or negative effect. This is pre-season all over again, except it's
Yeah.
a lot longer. You have a pre-season of about 4 or 5 months now. It'll go from March, April, May, June, maybe even July, and so it's the ultimate pre-season. And it's going. I know there are some players, and even guys that I know on the school. I won't name them now in case it puts pressure on them, but I know some guys are going to come back, and we'll see them in July, and like, wow, you're in fantastic shape. And we're going to be playing, whether it be county league or maybe the championship, and most other teams will be in great shape. And that's something I always think about, that if I'm being lazy or a club mate is being lazy, there's probably some lad in some other team who's just getting out and doing a bit. And you're going to see when we come back playing football in July or August, hopefully, or August, September, that there are guys who the break had a very positive effect on, and then there will be a few guys who it had a negative effect on, and they'll be cut out straight away. So it's like your pre-season, but you're doing 3 pre-seasons in a row, and I think it's just up to the player individually to make the most of it.
And I suppose touching on a point that came out in the media there during the week, do you think it could force some players into taste what retirement is like, well, if
Well,
they're at that age, depending
yeah,
on the individual, I suppose?
what I don't think so. I'm just speaking now from like, I hopefully have another couple of years, but the break has kind of made you want. It was nearly a trial run for retirement. I'm imagining I wasn't thinking like that, but I'm sure there's some players saying, "Yeah, I was thinking this might be my last season." Actually, I think Darren O'Sullivan. I saw it. I know he was on with you the other night. I saw a tweet by him saying that Glenn Carroll stuck with him for another year. I think this was. Well, this is a pre-season of sorts. It's also a trial run for retirement, saying, would you like, that's what retirement's going to be, no football for you. And I think it can give players the kind of extra bit of hunger. Actually, it might work in reverse. So
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So it's again, I suppose on that point, it really depends on the individual. So hopefully it'll have a positive effect. So I suppose just to finish that point, do you think there will be football before the end of the year?
yeah, all going well. Look, it's all down to the main restrictions, but I think there will. Look, I know there's no inter-county games until October. But that's a lot of that is the main attraction of an inter-county game is the crowd,
Mhm.
and that's from a financial point of view as well. So I hope that we'll have some club games, in September, maybe August, September probably. That'd be great just to play something. And the GA said club players will be prioritized, which is the right thing to do, because it encompasses everybody. It's not just the elite players. So I think, yeah, we'll have some football before the end of the year.
Perfect. And I suppose, look, we'll take it back to the early days. I said that last night in an interview when I got accused of calling the person old. But
Yeah.
do you know, I suppose, look, when you started playing football, look, you played Kerry Juniors, won All Ireland, and played with under 21s, and won All Ireland in 2009, I think it was. Is
2008
it
for under
eight? Was
21s, yeah.
it? Eight, and that was a fantastic team. You had Tommy Welsh and you had Killian Young, a lot of lads who went on and represented the county for a long time.
Yeah, I'm saying I just would say Killian Young's age, and yeah, he was our captain in 2008. And over the past few years, our under 21s and under 20s, unfortunately, they haven't won an All Ireland since 2008. And every year, there's almost a look back at that team, like saying, "Oh, the last team to win an All Ireland." And you look through that team, Shane Enright was on it, David Moore and Tommy Walsh, Kieran O'Leary, Brian Looney, Mike Stam O'Donoghue, a couple of
Brilliant footballers,
some
yeah.
players, a lot of them have gone on and starred with the senior team, and it just kind of showed you need an amazing team to win an under 21 or 20. I don't know why it is, but we won one in 2008. The previous one then was 1998. I think we might have done two in a row. So we've won two titles in 23 or 4 years. But the All Ireland seniors for the most part were still flooding in. But yeah, we had an exceptional team back then, and every now and again the program or the team program might be in the paper, and you stop and think like, saying, "Wow, that team was exceptional."
It was, and I suppose, look, every player has bad luck in certain venues. I'm led to believe that you had a bad experience in Curra on two occasions. That's where you did your cruise ship on two times.
Yeah, yeah. That was the first one. 2006. So I was 19, and I remember I was cornerback at the time. I used to be marking the livelier corner forwards, and Johnny Buckley, one of Curra's best players, a year or two older than me, he was corner forward. So I knew I was in for a bit of a battle that day, and marking Johnny, I think we ran out to the 45 early on in the game, and Johnny shaped up to take a shot, but he did it. He dummied it, and I kind of bought the dummy, but a little bit too late. So I was jumping, but as I tried to turn, my foot landed on the ground and hyperextended. My knee hyperextended, so the knee bent the wrong way, and obviously fell to the ground in agony. So yeah, so whatever, taken away and taken off to hospital tour. That was 2009. Oh, sorry, 2006, and then 3 years later, 2009, with the Kerry Juniors playing a challenge game about 20 yards away, still in Corro, 20 yards away from the first spot toward the second cruise ship. It was a partial tear, so I played on for a couple of years. Yeah, but Corro is not a good pitch for me and my knees. So,
I know. I suppose, look, talking, the last three lads I had on, there was incidents or events that happened in their own personal life or in the area where they're from that kind of really was a catalyst for, I suppose, for them to drive on. Did anything ever happen in your life that kind of made you realize, look, I shouldn't be worrying about this. There's more important things in life.
hmm. Yeah, for sure. Look, and what I'm going to say now, I know like dozens of players now in Scotland went through it, and there were family members of the guy who passed away. I'll run through the quick gist of it for those who don't know. In 2011, playing West Kerry Championship, and we'd beaten the Spole kind of handy the few years previous, and so there was always that complacency. Because when I started playing against the Spole mid 2000s, they were always beating us. So that kind of turned towards the end of the decade. We were beating them, and played them in 2011. And Pat McGenna was all he wanted to fire us up in the training session beforehand. So I was centre back at the time, and I was marking Bonnie Driscoll. Next thing, in the training session, got an elbow in the face, and like Bonnie was full strong, like, but he'd never do anything dirty. But he caught me with an elbow right in the lip and in the nose, and it was bleeding away. And he was laughing and saying, "Oh, sorry," and all that. So that was grand. A few days later, we're playing the Spole, and we were playing shocking. It was half time. The Spole were beating us by a few points. Game wasn't out of sight, but they were on top. And a few minutes into the second half, we were bringing the ball out, and I see Boney lying down on the ground, and this guy Sean Dorgan from the Spole standing next to him. And so I ran over to Sean like, "Oh, what the heck did you do?" And he said, no, Eamonn, I did nothing, did nothing. And Bonnie was on the ground, and I'll kind of fast forward. That was he lost consciousness, and he died a couple of days later from a brain hemorrhage. So that was October 2011. So he, the last thing he did was play football with us, and the championship was cancelled and all that. And everybody knew Bonnie. Even in recent weeks, I don't know, you've seen a KDL page.
Yeah, I just want to say that. Yeah,
they're naming the best KDL team of people's playing careers, and Bonnie's on a lot of teams because everyone knew him in terms of soccer, everybody knew him in terms of football, but also everyone knew him around the place just because he was such a nice guy. He was always great fun. And that was end of October 2011, and football was cancelled, so everything was done for the year. And over the next month or two, everywhere you went, people, they knew me from on the school football or camp soccer, and everywhere you went, even on nights out in Dingle, lads were saying, "Oh, sorry about Bonnie" and all this. And looking back in hindsight, maybe it was a collective depression in the whole peninsula, but at the time, I can't stay around here. So myself and Niall, my neighbour, went off to New Zealand, just totally to forget all about football, forget all about on the school and camp and whatever else, because every time we passed the pitch or went onto the pitch, we just thought of Bonnie. And I know like all everyone in the panel was suffering, and his family were suffering more than anyone. And maybe it's just a way of getting out of it. Myself and Niall went off to New Zealand for a few months to forget about it. And in New Zealand, it was back to basics. There was no sport. It was driving tractors, on farms, just driving tractors for 13, 14 hours a day. And then we used to come home, watch a bit of TV, off to bed, wake up in the morning, drive tractors again. Very basic. So that was the exact opposite of Ireland. The weather was lovely, nothing on our minds bar machinery and things. And I remember being there at the time. I was big into writing, creative writing, but nobody knew. I used to write screenplays and all that, and I used to love reading novels and stuff. And while I was in New Zealand, just got a total change mindset. I remember one day thinking, maybe I should continue to write. I should write this novel. I'd started the first novel, and no one knew about it. But I said, I think I'm going to continue writing this, because sure, like, what's the worst that could happen? And every time I thought, well, maybe saying, I drive tractors basically for a living, and I want to write a novel. That doesn't line up, So, and I used to work in construction. I was an engineer as well. So I said, yeah, I leave that off. But every time I thought about it, I said, no. What if Bonnie wanted to do something like that? And yet he didn't have the chance. So look, I said, get over yourself. And I came back a couple months later and just decided I'm taking the rest. I'm not going back to work for a few months. I'm sitting at home. I'm writing a novel. And then as you kind of came back and told people, they're like, oh, that's cool. And then after a while, I realized nobody cared. It was just all in my own head for the few previous years that I can't tell anyone I'm into creative writing or into reading novels because they'll think there's something wrong. But then when you told people, they're like, oh, fair enough, Brent, cool. And also around that time, I remember driving tractors in these big fields, and I was reversing it, pure farmer stuff. I was reversing a tractor and trailer, and I'd reversed down this long ass road. And after a while, I was saying, geez, if I reverse any further, I'm going to set a world record. And then just something sparked. I was like, geez, I wonder what the record is. And the first record came about 2 years later. I'd come back to Ireland in 2012, and the first record then was actually the longest journey reversing a tractor and trailer, and all came from being in New Zealand and just kind of thrown off the shackles and said, what, I'm going to do and think and say whatever I feel, because what if Bonnie wants to do something like this, but because of the place we were living in, it kind of didn't seem like the right thing to do. So he didn't tell anyone, and now he doesn't have a chance to do anything else. So yeah, Bonnie's passing kind of kick-started a load of things for me.
And did the pressure get to you for the first world record that you pulled your cruise ship beforehand, or what happened there? Did you get too nervous?
That was it. I remember coming up. It was a few months in advance of that. It had not been August 2014, the tractor trailer reverse, and we'd had a beer fest now in Squall the previous few years, and they just wanted to spice it up. And a few guys who were in charge said, we need to get something to bring a crowd. And I was like, well, I might try set a world record. And they're like, geez, what is that? And I said, oh, I want to reverse the tractor and trailer from Dingle to Almascall. And I said, people might come out and would stay. And everyone would stay, make money for it was a cancer charity. And then a few people, like, in particular, I know Shane Foley and Bowler, like, wow, geez, great idea, that's going to be great. But then so many other people said, nah, you won't be able to do it. Nah, guards won't let you, all these kind of things. And every time someone said something like that, I got wound up. I was like, I didn't tell them, but I was like, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to do that. So, yeah, and during that time, I was still playing football, and I tore the second cruciate in 2009, but it wasn't a full tear, it was a partial tear. So it was kind of hanging on for a few years, and about 2 weeks before I had to reverse the tractor and trailer, I tore the cruciate fully. So yeah, maybe it was nerves getting to me. So I remember getting onto the tractor and trailer behind Dingle, having to reverse from Dingletown to Skull, and you're kind of limping onto the tractor because your cruciate's torn. But it didn't affect me, thankfully. So.
And would say, do you know when you set your first world record, that was kind of the catalyst again for kind of what happened after that. You obviously inspired the rest of your family to follow suit, but I believe you set one or two more records individually first, and then the rest of the family came on board.
So the plan years ago was never to set a gang of them, but when I set the first one and saw there was such a positive reaction to it, we raised thousands of euro for the cancer charity, and at the time I did a torn cruciate, and football kind of stagnated, and there was no, I wasn't going to get any Kerry teams or anything, and I said I needed something else. And I remember a few months later and being inside in hospital after having my second operation on my knee, and I said I need something to motivate me, and football wasn't doing it, or wasn't going to do it. And a few weeks later, or a few months later, and he was just showing me the kind of wall squats. So they're very basic, just kind of water squat. And I said, when can I do full ones? And he goes, oh, not for a while yet. And I just got it into my head saying, I can't do one squat, but I'm going to, try as fit as I can, that I'm going to set a record in squats. And I didn't know what that record was. So I started researching. Look, I'm not the biggest, so I said, okay, I'm not the most. I'm not going to be the fastest or the fittest ever, but I found a kind of category that suited my build, which was the most squats in 1 minute while wearing a 40-pound backpack. So for a kind of year and a half, I was back playing football. That was always number one in my head. Keep training. And if the harder I train for records, the more beneficial it will be for football anyway. So a year and a half later, I set that. I set the world record for squats in 1 minute carrying a 40-pound backpack. And even the guy who had it was a UK paratrooper, so he'd dozens of records. No harm to take one off. So from then on, it was now I need to do more. So I'm trying to think what one came next after that. Oh yeah, then that was 2016, and I was trying for ages to get my brother Jason and other family members involved, and something like that you can't force people into it.
No.
It's you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But then in 2018, I had another bad injury. In the meantime, we'll get into that later. In 2018, Jason just got into his head that he wanted to start them, and my sister Sandra as well. So, I think we've 14 or 15 between the gang of us now. So that's
quite remarkable. That between the three of you, 14 or 15, and it's they're all quite unique, and they're a lot of work went into them. And I suppose something that a lot of people won't be aware of, that it's obviously the amount of a lot of individual work to achieve the record, but there's a lot of teamwork as well in relation to making sure the record is actually recorded. Everything's set up.
Oh, totally. And 2018, we did a couple over a few days, and the first one was most chest to ground burpees in 1 minute, and I did it live on radio on Radio Kerry where I work. So even someone was saying to me days in advance, "Are you okay? Will you be stressed about doing it?" I was like, "No, all I need to worry about is Jamie, you were there helping." I said, "I have to make sure Jamie and Jason are on cameras, so and so Shane Scanlon and someone else are on timers, and they're at that stage, whether you're going to do it or not."
Yeah.
and you just have to worry about everyone else because it's a. The joke was made. Actually, I saw a great tweet a few days ago. Someone put up saying, "Oh, during the coronavirus outbreak, I went to the shop. I got dinner for my grandmother. I delivered it, but I didn't put it on Twitter, so it didn't even happen." I know they're taking the piss, but there's something equivalent to the records. If you can't document it, you can say what you want, but you have to have the proof. So that's nearly the biggest stress coming up to a record is have I got certain camera angles? Have I got the experts there to watch? Have I got all the evidence? Have I got all the boxes ticked? Because
Yeah.
you know in advance for the most part whether or not you're going to make it. So and yeah, that's probably the organizational skills in it. Yeah, for
And then
sure.
that's again like what you're saying. That's probably one. If it is, it's a very very important aspect of it because look, you could break the world record, and if you don't have that documented, like you said, what's the you didn't really you won't get the reward then, or you won't get that plaque
Yeah,
that you have enough of them around the place. And
yeah. And so even like Jason's one, for example, Jason did a 24-hour farmer's carry around the track, and the amount of video footage was incredible. And imagine telling Jason at the end of that, yeah, sorry, we forgot to press record on the camera, or something
yeah,
silly like that. So
yeah.
yeah, that is when it comes to that, that's the biggest, that's the most stressful thing, really.
And again, you had another setback a couple of years ago. Your
Yeah.
spine and your back. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, the start of that, when I was in my teens, I used to have issues with my back the whole time. I used to have a kind of a brace, a Velcro brace on when I was 14, 15, 16, just for the more. I don't know why, just born with a kind of a weak back. But as I got in with Kerry minor teams and development squads, back then core training was all the rage. And it was good because when I started doing a lot of this core training, my back problems went away. They were still there. There was stiffness. There was always some issue, but for the most part, I kind of trained my way out of it. But then in 2017, it was probably just maybe not taking care of myself, not doing back strengthening exercises. Early 2017, I was playing a bit of soccer, and football was in the break. And I remember my hamstrings were getting tight, and I know at the time I probably thought I knew enough. I said, "Oh, my hamstrings are too weak. I need to strengthen these," not thinking that it could be my back. And the more I was playing soccer, the slower I was getting. And I was stretching, I was trying to be as mobile as possible, I was strengthening the hamstrings, and I kept getting slower. And went one day to a local physio and a masseuse really, and he said to me, "Oh look, your hamstrings are in good shape. You seem to be quite fit. Your hamstrings are strong. They're they're in good shape. I think it could be your back." And long story short, got an MRI on my back. It took a while, a couple of weeks yet, and turned out that was March 2017. I had a protruding disc in my back. So, like we say, if that's your disc, it was a bit sticking out effectively. And I was also in final. I went back to college, so it was my final year in college. But like every couple of days, I was getting worse. I was starting to hunch over. Obviously, sport was out of the question. But I was also in final year in college. I had my final year projects and all that to do. So I said, look, I'll worry about that later on. And even in March, I remember one time sitting inside in the canteen in college, and I was sitting there with a few classmates, and we were chatting away, and I sneezed, and I couldn't speak for about 10 minutes. I thought I was going to pass out. I Obviously the disc was pressing on a nerve, and I nearly passed out with pain. But the back got worse. Like over 6 months, I lost about 10 kg, and I didn't have a lot of weight to lose in the first place. And I looked terrible. I was as white as a ghost. I was hunched over. I couldn't train. I'd lost all shape, and I'd gone back to college, so health insurance wasn't a priority then. So I was a public patient, and I remember saying, I rang up CUH in May of 2017. My exams were finished. I was bedbound. Like I was trying to work one day a week. It was torture. I shouldn't have been driving a car. I was like one of those low riders in the car. I'd be singing for a rack, and I was getting to work and lie down on the ground for 10 minutes before I could do anything. And so I was only working one day a week, and soon after I stopped working. So my back was just getting worse. I rang CUH in May, and I said, look, I asked for an appointment with a neurosurgeon a few months ago, just wondering, is that coming up? They're like, oh yeah, that's January 2018. And that was 6 months away, and I couldn't. So I said, look, I'll go private. the joys of the private sector. I was in for an appointment the following week,
Jeez.
and I met the rheumatologist. Actually, it wasn't even a neurosurgeon; it was a rheumatologist, and he saw me when I was coming in, and I could just see the look in his face of horror, because I was like the Hunchback of Notre Dame at this stage. I was in an awful way, and he was horrified. And I had the scan from March on the CD, so I showed it to him, and he put it up on the screen. And he goes, "Eamonn, this was you in March." And I know nothing really about how your back works, but it was as plain as day. It was, you could see the disc was sticking out. He goes, "That was you in March. He goes, "You're way worse now." And he, up until that point, I said, "Oh, I don't want surgery." And he said, "There's no way around it." He goes, "You needed surgery in March." And he didn't charge me. He said, I'm going to put you through publicly if you promise me one thing." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "That you go to A&E straight away." And I
Oh,
was like, you get kind of worried. I was like, because I only came for an appointment. He said, if you don't get this sorted soon, you're going to lose control of your bladder, first of all. So I was going to end up
oh.
pissing myself. And he said, also, you're going to lose feeling in your legs. You won't be able to walk. So, like
And how did you
the
feel in that
consultant,
moment? You must have been, you
oh,
must have got a big shock.
I remember being inside in the consultant's office, and well, I knew I was bad, but for a consultant, first it was on his face when he came in, and I just got so worried. And he was pricking me with needles and all that. He said, "Look, at least you could be worse." And you're like, "How the hell could I be worse?" So then when he said, "Look, yeah, you're going to lose control of your bladder shortly, and you won't be able to walk," then it's like, oh my god, you're frozen there. You're like, I don't want to move now,
Yeah.
you're going to say, "Geez, if I do anything wrong, I'm going to fall on the floor and won't be able to get it back up." So I was taken over. I went over to A&E, and I was taken in and put on a trolley and put through for a second scan. And they gave me the best painkillers. Like, they didn't kill the pain, but it just kind of made you high for about 12 hours. They were great. And the neurosurgeon couldn't come and see me because they were flooded with accidents and everything that day. And they said, "Look, we got to send you home for a few days because you're going to be waiting on the trolley." So they sent me home for 10 days, and they gave me 5 days worth of these painkillers. So the first 5 days at home, it was, it was bad, but could have been worse. And then for the next 5 days, I didn't sleep. I was awake for 5 days in a row. Just agony. I I could shower myself just about, but after that, then I was in crutches around the house. I used to get up in the morning, come downstairs to Jason's room and lie in the bed. I didn't watch TV much. I just watched TV all day. Couldn't think, could hardly
What
talk,
age
could
were you
think.
then, Eamon?
Sorry.
What age were you when this happened?
30. So
Jeez.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember one night I was lying in bed as well, and I was back in the parents' house, thank God, because I was college, just finishing college, and I one night just lying in bed, just not, it wasn't crying, it was moaning, and I couldn't stop the moaning. And mom came into my room about 4:30, and she goes, "What's wrong?" Like, my two legs were on fire, and she was there rubbing my legs, and you know, the pain was just, it was like they were on fire. It was torture. And
Yeah.
so as fast forward, worst few days of my life, then went off down to CUH again for what was a second consultation. And I met the consultant, and he was laughing at me because I was on his kind of physio table, and I was in tears. I was just, I could hardly walk. I couldn't walk that stage without assistance and everything. I was very bad. And he was laughing, and he said, "Look, we'll find you a bed," and all this. He was trying to cheer me up. He said, "We'll find you a bed," and all this kind of thing. So later on that evening, I was inside in the hospital, and he was going home for dinner. It was the most casual thing ever, but it was really good. He said, "Hey, when I'm going home for dinner, but I'll be back in a few hours, and if there's no car accident, yeah, you're first in the queue." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "We need to cut that out because you're going to lose feeling shortly." He said, "We need to cut out that disc. He will be today or tomorrow." And that was great. He came back in a couple of hours later around midnight. I went in for surgery, and I remember lying inside there, and the anaesthetist, the guy who knocks you out, he was putting in the drip into the hand, and he said, "Geez, Eamon, you're okay with needles and all that." And I said, why is that? He goes, "Geez, most people are kind of, squeamish seeing the drip go in and all this." And I was like, no, this is going to be my first sleep in about 5 days. I'm really looking forward to this. And woke up a few hours later, and for the first time in months, I had no pain in my legs. I just felt amazing. They wheeled me off down to the ward again, and the following morning, I remember, because I had the two cruciate operations, so you're getting out of bed, you're a bit nervous. So I got out of bed, and I felt pain where the incision was, and
Yeah.
in a jar next to me was my disc, because I'd said to the
Okay.
surgeon, if you cut anything out, I want to keep it. And there was a nice chunk of my disc, and a few hours later, the surgeon came around with some students, and he said to the students, "Oh, this is Eamonn. He got a whatever, I don't know, it was L4, L5 protruding disc. We knew he was bad from the MRI, and just went through a whole list of things. But when we actually opened him up, he was worse than the MRI suggested, and we'd have cut out
Jeez.
about 60% of one disc. And
Jeez.
and then I got the jar and I threw it at the students, and they were all squeamish and everything. So they're obviously not going to be surgeons. But yeah, and went home. I was told not to sit down for 2 weeks, but they're like, that was minor.
And I suppose again that incident, did you reassess life again, or do you reassess where you're going, and you kind of put a few more goals in place, and you broke a few more records after that?
Yeah, and the first few months after the operation, it was just Pilates, which I recommend to anyone, and just basic kind of exercises that I was given. But after that, when I started to feel good and started to get weight back and things, I said to myself, right, I need to do something else, because like football again, I've kind of gone past it in terms of football. But so I wouldn't be, I couldn't put that high my priorities, because there's only so much I can kind of give at this stage. So
Yeah.
I I decided, yeah, I needed to pick something that I want to do more records. So I said, what do I hate? So I said, I hate pull-ups and I hate burpees. I said, fine, that's what I'm going to train at. So for next 10, 11 months, I trained for burpees and pull-ups. And so in May, it was like 11 months after the operation, I set the record for burpees. I attempted the record for burpee pull-ups, but unfortunately, you were on about organisation. The previous week, someone had beaten that, so
Ah,
I'd beaten the original, but turns out someone else had beaten it the previous week. But you know what? It didn't matter. I'd spent 8 or 9 months practicing burpees and pull-ups, and I felt perfect. So yeah, that was a tough one to come back from.
and what was the record? Was the most burpee pull-ups in 5 minutes or 10 minutes? What was the one?
It was most probably pull-ups in, well, 1 minute and 1 hour. So
Oh no.
yeah. So some lunatic did both of them. Like I was planning to do both, and he did both of them as well. So 21 burpee pull-ups in a minute, and I think I did 270 burpee pull-ups in 1 hour, and he'd gone into the 300. So look, no complaints. But
But which record did you break
oh,
in that?
the chest to ground burpees. So
Oh, chest
that's
run.
like, you stand up, you jump down, hands out, like, I know you can't see in the camera now,
Oh
like
yeah.
hands out wide, back into push up, jump up. So they're different variations of burpees, but you have to get the chest down and get the hands out to prove that your chest was on the ground. So yeah, that was did that one live on the radio, which was quite cool. So
And I
yeah.
suppose from those incidents, from say that incident from 2011 up to that incident that you were effectively nearly paralyzed. Um, what gets you up in the morning? Is it that that you got through, basically, that you're lucky to be able to walk now, or
Yeah,
it's very easy for people to set goals, what I'm trying to say, and then it's very easy to dismiss these goals when it's rainy or when it's cold. How do you get through that barrier, that mindset?
yeah, like especially after, well, the cruciate was one thing, come back after those, but especially after the back operation, anytime I was feeling lazy. So I would say a couple months after operation, I'd my plan made, say, okay, it'll be a year and a half, I'm going to do burpees and pull-ups. And you're inside at home after a long day of work, or you've been lazy, and next thing it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and you're like, all right, I know I must go do pull-ups and burpees or whatever other exercises I was doing, and you're like, feck it, do I really have to? But what I taught myself to do was say, look, you have an option. It's either go out and do it, or you're going to get nowhere near it. You know, you're going to embarrass yourself. You want to do 10 pull-ups in a row. Or the other thing then was, I say, Eamon, think back to 6 or 7 months ago when you were bedbound, you were stuck in bed, you were crying in bed almost, your legs were on fire. Imagine if someone offered that Eamon, like, oh, you can get out and go do a training session, you'll feel great. I would have bitten their hand off. So every time I was feeling lazy, I said, just get over yourself. 6 months ago, you were close enough being able to walk, you know. So I put that into perspective every time. And even these days, okay, I have other plans in mind in terms of records, you know, but I think you always have to, either it's yourself or you'll find someone else who's kind of an inspiration. You know, we know so many people who have had unfortunate accidents and they're not able to get out and train and do what we can do. And when you realize how fortunate you are to be able to do that, it motivates you and it kind of tells you, yeah, get off the couch or get out of bed and go do something, you know. So it's a bit of just I suppose the relevance of knowing how lucky you are.
And just, I suppose, just to add to that, I suppose it's kind of having gratitude for what you have now, and appreciating what you have. I suppose, look, I'll wrap it up now in such a way in a few minutes, but I'll throw one or two random questions to you that I didn't run by you before. I never told you before, but who has been the biggest influence on your sporting career? And you can include, we say, the goal setting in that, and who's been the biggest influence, we say, outside your sporting career?
All right, there, geez, they're tough ones. Yeah. I'm trying to be brief. Yeah. Well, look, I suppose first of all, in terms of football, it's always the underage coaches with the club. You know, like when I think back to underage Jim and Kennedy, you know, driving us to all parts of the county. You know, and
One of the greats.
yeah, exactly. He was getting nothing for it. You know, and he had us from underage and all the way up in exam. But then, sure, neighbour Pat McKenna, he was manager of underage teams and also senior teams and things like that. So those, in terms of football, they'd be the two main ones. But you know, there are always a couple of figures. When I started playing senior football, I remember the two Moynans, Keith Moynihan and Mark Moynihan. They were a good bit older than me, but they were always two great guys who always, some days you might get destroyed, they'd always come over and say, hey, man, forget about it, just you'll beat someone next week, you know, and you might get destroyed again next week, but they'd say, oh, you'll be okay again. But I suppose in terms outside of football, I'm always looking at people, you know, who what I call like doing some things insane. Like people think that, oh, Eamon doing burpee pull-ups for an hour is insane, and that or just practicing burpees for months and all that. It's not really. Like your cousin or our neighbour Shane Finn is just a machine, and you know he's someone I'd always look up to. Even though I'm older than him, I'd always look up to him. Like he does what he does is amazing. You know, he runs across continents, and even he did a story when he did the 24 marathons in 24 days. And as he was describing the story, I could feel the pain. Day 7, it was pouring rain above Monaghan, and his feet were all blisters.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like the blood was mixing with the rain, and he got into his camper van, you know, took off the socks, there was skin left, and then he went off to sleep. You know, and just sometimes you have sleep, so you just close your eyes, you're awake again, and you're like, that didn't feel good. And he'd have put his feet back into runners and go again. You know, okay, there was days that my hands might have been just aren't get cut up or something, but outside of it, like Shane Finn is one of the best, and we're so lucky to have him so close by. Yeah, so he always provides good examples.
Perfect. And I suppose just who has been the most difficult player to mark throughout your career, or would say that you hate marking the most?
Yeah. Can I give two answers in this one because they're two totally different? Obviously, Jeannie Farrell was harsh because the thing with Jeannie, he wouldn't get involved in rough and tumble or anything like that because he was just too smart for it. Like his movement and his reading, like Jeannie knows what people are going to do before they know it themselves. So he was always very tough to mark. And then from the other point of view, where you kind of get muscled out of it and ran out of it, would be my own neighbour Niall McKenna. He was someone who just, like, we used to be marking short for years. I'd sprint up the field, then he'd sprint, and then just to piss you off, he'd sprint the other way, and you'd to sprint after him.
It's strong, like.
And then I suppose in an inter-county setting, Kieran O'Leary, like, you know, I thought he was just exceptional. He had everything. He had the strength, which he didn't get a lot of credit for. He'd strength, and he was just fantastic on the ball. So suppose those three, I know you're looking for one, I'm giving three, so I'm kind of a cop
Perfect,
out.
perfect. And what would be your favorite dish to make
Phew. Well, I won't say make because I wouldn't be a great cook,
or cook?
but
Yeah,
look, I know everyone. If you ask this question to especially sports people, they're going to say some chicken and pasta or something, or bolognese or something nonsensical. But if I had to, if I had one final item, I won't say a full dinner. If I had one final item, it has to be probably Black Forest Gatto cake. I absolutely love Black Forest Gatto. It's not
perfect.
very good
And
for you.
um, what advice would you give to kids? You growing up, whether playing sport or growing up, and look, they're playing individual sports. Because look, albeit we say setting records is it's something you do on your own, and it
Mm.
takes a remarkable amount of mental strength.
Yeah, like that's a good one. I think it took me until I was let me see, 25 or 6 to realize that you do not give a shit about what other people think because chances are they're not thinking about you anyway.
Yeah.
And uh, in relation to with say I was writing novels and or well, short stories and screenplays and writing novels, and I wouldn't want anyone to find out. But then when I told people, it's like, all right, grand, yeah. It turns out they weren't thinking about me anyway. So same with records and same with say getting on for young lads trying to get on under 16s or minors or in 20s. Just worry about yourself because chances are nobody else cares about you. So just get over it and give it 100%.
And that seems to be a general trend between, we say, from the last few interviewees we've had, that don't take too much to heart from whether it be social media, whether it be from other people, because look, you need to steady your own ship as well. And a lot of people, like you said, just worry about
Yeah.
yourself.
And the only thing is, I know it's getting so much harder to kind of forget about social media and forget about what people think because, look, not that there was no technology in the mid 2000s, but when I was 17, 18, I couldn't go on Instagram or Facebook or something and see. I see Colin Moriarty is something there, but yeah, I couldn't go on social media and see like play a championship game and next thing's like, oh, Eamonn Hickson was shit or Eamonn Hickson was this and that.
Yeah.
That didn't exist. Whereas now, like I see after games, players come off, first thing they pick up is their phone and they've been tagged in a couple of things. And you just have to zone out from that. And to answer Colin Moriarty's question there, I see who's my favourite on golf player. It's Colin, you're third. You're not number one. I'll save that for another day. I'll save that for when we're back training.
Let them know that. Um, That's perfect. Look, Eamon, I suppose to sum it all up again, look, again, the takeaway is that teamwork is very important, regardless whether on a positive team culture, regardless whether it's on, a GA team or a sports team, or whether it's, setting records or setting, individual goals. Still, you need people around you to help you, So I suppose you would agree with that, would you? That, it takes a
Oh,
team, whether it be an individual goal or a collective goal.
yeah, 100%. And even like, okay, we'll stick to the records because obviously I'd be training when I was small as a team, but something individual. If I'm training for whatever else, even now I have a few things in mind, but I'm still not training on my own to a certain extent because I'm training for something. Sandra's training for something. Jason is, and a few other people I know want to get involved. I'll keep that secret so not to put
Do
them under
you do you
pressure.
want
But
to give us an exclusive here now? No one will hear this, that's grand.
yeah, no, I'll wait till I get better at something, then I'll tell you. But that's the thing, I got something that is a good few months away because it's not easy, and I'm not good at it yet. But that's the thing, everything is you don't do things in isolation. Just seeing Shane Finn commented there, like Shane Finn doesn't do things in isolation either, and he's the ultimate individual athlete. You have support teams, whether or not it's in team games or individual sports. You have a support team, whether you kind of know it or not.
Yeah,
Thinking back to I was like Colin Moriarty there was commenting, like thinking back to being a minor. You come home from minor training and the dinner's there. You've seen the adverts actually, and there's cling film at home with the dinner still
yeah,
there from the mom. So that's a support team. So you just
it
have
is.
to
Yeah.
be conscious of that, and appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Perfect. Perfect. Look, Eamon, I will leave it there. Thanks very much for taking time out. I know you're busy with work and working towards those goals, which I thought you might let us know
Yeah.
what's down the line, but that's for another day.
Yeah.
Um,